Namaste and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means a study or science, Sattology means a science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means a science of fake lie or imagination. I have a very, very special guest who is a very well-known researcher on these topics, especially the dating and also many other things he has covered, the chronological history, the missing link, which scholars used to say is no more missing now. But the scholars will continue to say missing, but otherwise their jobs will go out. So without delay, let us welcome Sri Vedveer Arya.
Namaste, Aditya ji. Thank you for inviting me on your show again.
So first of all, congratulations, Vedveer ji. Yesterday was a global outrage against barbarism against Hindus in Bangladesh. And I think we need to do something in same for Kashmir and Bengal also, which is very much needed. But what do you see if people complain Hindus are not united? Yesterday we saw that we are all united when we have a common purpose. What is your view on that?
It's not the unity is not the issue. Even you are united, a civilized person is destined to lose against a barbarian. Why? Because the degree of barbarianism you can't match. A civilized person never be a barbarian. This is the reason why a civilized society historically lost to the barbarians. What happened in Persia is rather they were not united. That's why the Islam defeated the Zoroastrianism. It's not true. Even it's actually the kind of a civility. The Islam had never glorified civility or humanity. They just said that, yes, anybody who does not follow your way, you have to kill them. Killing others, looting others, raping other women, that is, I think they justify that. So this is the reason why Islam always inflicted atrocities on other religions, and the same is continuing till date. We need to reform Islam if Islam has to be part of this world. Otherwise, it's only that we may land up in medieval era if we are not taking strong actions against such atrocities.
You're right, because there is a limit to tolerance for everyone, and they cannot silence everyone by the name Islamophobia. In fact, they are suffering from kafir phobia, which is a big problem. So we'll get started on chronology, which we did last time. So please, you can share and we can start off.
Yes, we were talking about the sheet anchors of the Western chronology.
Correct.
How the world chronology went wrong due to considering the first AD as the sheet anchor for the world chronological history. So I have explained how till the reform of Gregorian reforms, and thereafter the Scaliger raised certain questions on the chronology. To solve those problems, the James Ussher, he came up with the biblical chronology, and same biblical chronology has been established by the Ussher, Lightfoot, and Newton. So these three, this trinity, they actually laid the foundations for the chronology, especially the Western chronology, considering the first AD as the sheet anchor. What actually Newton has done, I'll just share my screen. He wrote a book somewhere in 1720, before his death, but his book, I hope you can see.
Yes, we can see. Yes.
So the Chronology of Ancient Kingdom by Newton. This book was published in 1728. So exactly, I think, a year after his death. But he wrote this book during his lifetime. So he just mentioned the chronology of ancient kingdoms amended. What actually Newton has done, he considered the first AD as the sheet anchor. Okay. Then what he did, he contracted the Greek chronology by 500 years. You know, this is actually 500 years. And the Egyptian chronology by 1000 years. A traditional chronology of the Greece as well as the traditional chronology of Egypt was much more ancient than what is being taught today, technically. So then what happened? Why the Newton was compelled to what actually went wrong with the Newton, why he contracted the Greek chronology and the Egyptian chronology? Why? Because these are the actually chapters what the Newton presented the chronology. Actually, Greek and Egypt, these are the most ancient, and as well as the Babylon is also interlinked with these three great civilizations: Greek civilization, Egyptian, and the Babylon. But why the chronology of each civilization we can't arrive independently? Because they are interlinked. So we need a sheet anchor to reconcile the chronologies of Greece, Egypt, as well as Babylon. So the Christian historians, they assumed the first AD as the sheet anchor and then started reconciling the world chronology. This is the reason why all traditional chronologies went wrong. Why? Because traditional chronologies are not based on the first AD, they have their own sheet anchors. So what I did, I reconciled all chronologies based on their own sheet anchors instead of following the one sheet anchor like a first AD. So let me explain you. When I said in the Western chronology also, there is a chronological error of 660 years. In the last session, what I established that Jesus did not born on first AD. Actually, he was born in 660 BC. We have to antedate Jesus by 660 years. So the Augustus Achaemenid Empire and so. When you date Jesus around 67, then it affects the date of Muhammad also. Let us examine the Aine Akbari and Akbarnama. These are the why I chose these texts, because the author of Aine Akbari and Akbarnama, he was Abul Fadl was a great astronomer, and he gives many verifiable astronomical details in his book. So what he used some solar Hijri Jalali calendar and the lunar Hijri and the Ilahi era, and he refers to certain. So how what I am saying that we have to even review the dating of the Hijra era, because the date of Jesus' birth was assumed in first AD is absolutely wrong. So we have to review the dating of Hijra also. How we can verify it? We have certain dates, like I'm not showing all because there are almost 98 to 100 dates are verifiable, and these dates have been mentioned by Abul Fadl in his book Akbarnama. So what he says is the first year of Akbar, he mentions 28 Rabi al-Sani. Actually, the Mughals were actually Zoroastrians. So they always celebrated Navroz, and I haven't found any great reference of celebration of Ramzan in Akbarnama. Akbar used to celebrate every year the Navroz. Navroz is actually when sun entered into Aries. The beginning of vernal equinox or the day of vernal equinox was celebrated as the Navroz. So this Navroz celebration continued till Shah Jahan, Jahangir, Shah Jahan also. So the Navroz celebrations, actually, we need to, in a solar calendar, you can easily verify the occurrence of vernal equinox. Okay. What modern historians date Akbar in the 16th century. So the dates given by Abul Fazl, if you reconcile with the modern Hijri calendar, then the date is 10th March 1556 AD. But the sun entered Aries almost 16 to 17 days later, that is 27th March 1556. I don't know why Akbar used to celebrate 15 or 16 days before the vernal equinox. It appears to absolutely absurd, because Abul Fazl gives exact not only date, he gives minutes and seconds when sun entered into Aries. or the occurrence of vernal equinox. Great astronomer like Abul Fazl can't do such great mistake in assessing the actual date of vernal equinox. It is very easy to any astronomer during the ancient period, even 1000 or 2000 years before, the occurrence of vernal equinox can be easily identified. You may have few hours error, but can't have a some 15, 16 days error. This error, once you reconcile considering the what I have proposed the chronological correction, then it exactly matches 22nd March 1894 BCE, considering the even the weekdays and everything. So this is not the one. Why? Because the Abul Fazl gives the Akbar reigned for around 50 years. So the Akbar Nama has a 50 chapters. Each chapter begins from the vernal equinox and it's from the starting from the celebration of Nowruz, and he gives the date of Nowruz in solar calendar as well as in the Islamic lunar calendar. So the date becomes absolutely verifiable, and it can be easily established using the modern astronomical softwares like Stellariums and other. So when I have reconciled all 50, or even there are other dates also given in both calendars. When a date is given in solar calendar or lunar calendar, then it becomes very much reconcilable and verifiable perfectly. So none of the date can be verified if you consider the date of Akbar in the 16th century. So it appears that there is a chronological error in fixing the epoch of Hijra era and even the dating of Akbar. And one more the fact is the Aine Akbari, the author of Aine Akbari, Abul Fazl, gives the epochs of various epoch of eras. Okay, he starts giving an epoch of astrological era. Actually, Abul Fazl says that some planets are in Aries. All the conjunction of all planets in Aries somewhere 1,83,762 BC, and this epoch was used by astrologists. The years and the solar, and he said that how many years have been elapsed, the epoch of the Ilahi era. So here, what actually Abul Fazl, because I have established the date of Surya Siddhanta while arriving the Indian traditional chronology. Indian Surya Siddhanta is actually that Mayasura who wrote that Surya Siddhanta. He refers to an epoch of the conjunction of all planets in Aries. The same Surya Siddhanta, when it was transmitted to the West or Persia then they assumed it as an astrological era. So what they did actually, the 3000 years, actually they followed the 12,000 years Yuga cycle, in which there were the 4 different sub-cycles, like 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000 years put together are 12,000 years. So it is well known that the Persians astrologers followed a yuga of 12,000 years. So in which are 3,000 years, somewhere in the middle, since they wanted an accurate calculations, they just multiplied 3,000 by 60. So it became 1,83,000 years. So actually, if you add on the 3,000, if you minus 3,762 minus 1,82 and add only 3,000, it will be 6,762. That perfectly matches with the Surya Siddhanta date, what I have as 6778 BC. So hardly some 10, 12 years error. So the real astrological era, the epoch of astrological era referred or mentioned by Abul Fazl was actually the epoch of Surya Siddhanta. And that 1,80,000 years, why he is mentioning? Because during the time of Abul Fazl, already the 3,000 years elapsed was multiplied by 60. So that's why that became a sub-cycle of Yuga was 1,80,000. Actually, we have to take only 3,000 years instead of 1,80,000 years. And also he gives the era of that biblical deluge. This he says that one Abu Mashar of Balk, means bacteria, He used this epoch in his calculation of solar years, and he says that total 4,696 years have been elapsed. So some way the Aine Akbari or Abul Fazl indicates that with reference to the Abu Mashar, he says that somewhere 3763 BCE was the epoch of era of deluge, means the biblical great flood. And he also gives the epoch of Nabonassar. As I have already explained, Nabo-Nassarian era is very, very important to arrive the chronology given by the Ptolemy, and he gives the chronology of Achaemenid Empire and later Greek kings of Egypt. So, so the epoch of Nabo-Nassarian era commenced in 1408 BCE, and Aine Akbari perfectly gives the solution to this, and he says that 2341 years have been elapsed in somewhere 933 AD. So now there is another era of Philippus, and this is just commenced on the year in which Alexander died. So I am considering there is a chronological error of 660 years in dating of Alexander also, because all dates of Western history actually reconcile considering the first AD. So what they did, since Alexander died 323 years before Jesus, so they just fixed 323 BC. But once you have to date Jesus' birth somewhere in 660 BCE, you have to go back to 323, 324 years back. So that is the 983 BCE and era of Philippus. And Aine Akbari, the Abul Fazl says that 1917 years elapsed up to 933 AD, because he has considered 933 AD as a gaze year. So from there backwards, if you calculate, the epoch of Philippus can be easily established somewhere 984 BC. Similarly, he refers to the epoch of Syro-Macedonian era. It is actually Seleucid era that commenced in 972 BCE. But modern historians fix the epoch of Syro-Macedonian era or Seleucid era in 312 BCE, considering the 312 years starting from the Jesus birth. So this is how Jesus birth became the sheet anchor for arriving the epochs of all ancient eras. So what I am challenging, that don't consider first AD as the sheet anchor. You establish the more ancient sheet anchors, then arrive the epochs of various other these eras. So this 972 BCE is the more accurate epoch than the 312. And this Bukht-Nassar, actually in Persians called Bukht-Nassar, and actually is the Nabo-Nassar. And his epoch is already I have explained. He has to be dated around 1408 BCE. And Augustan era, and this is the when somewhere 688 BC. Then Antonius is the the Roman Emperor Antonian. So his he also actually established an epoch, or the later historians used the first regnal era of Antonius as an epoch. So that has commenced around somewhere 523, 522 BC. And one more very, very interesting fact is, the Abul Fazl says that the era of Diocletian era commenced actually 1010 years before the 933 BC. So that's why what Abul Fazl is indicating, that the era of Diocletian or Diocletian's era has commenced in 77 BC. What modern historians do, they just fix the Ilahi era somewhere 1590, I can somewhere 1584 or 1594, and go back for 1000. It has to be in the 6th century AD. And Diocletian, date of Diocletian cannot be established in the 6th century. So therefore, they reject this data point mentioned by the Abul Fazl, saying that Abul Fazl was wrong in giving the epoch of Diocletian era. But actually, what Abul Fadl is saying, that is indicating that the epoch of Diocletian era and the epoch of Martyrs era were not identical. Both were different epochs. But modern historians consider both are identical. That's why they fail to understand the epoch presented by Abul Fadl. So this is how let us examine the verifiable facts or verifiable astronomical detail mentioned by Severus Sibok, because we have to establish the epoch of Market Syrian. And it is a well-known fact that the epoch of Market Syrian commenced in 284 AD. So you need to understand, I'm not saying that Market era also has to be antedated by 660 years. No, this is absolutely correct. What is the date is that only the Jesus birth has to be much more ancient than the epoch. Presently, there is only 284 years difference between Market era and Jesus birth. But actually, the difference is more than 900 years. So Jesus birth has to be 660 BCE, whereas the Market era in 284 BCE. 284 AD. So how we can establish the epoch of Market Syrian? Severus Sibok, he was a Syrian Christian. He was the bishop of a church in Syria. What he says, he is actually referred in conjunction of all planets. So he says in the year of 245 of the era of the markets, on the 27th of actually is referring to an Egyptian month, and according to the Alexandrians, at the 12th hour of the day of the 7 planets were in conjunction in the sign of Taurus. So this we can easily, and the date is actually 19th May 529 AD. So what you have to go back 529 AD minus 245. You can easily establish the epoch as 284 AD. So epoch of Market era can be independently, we can establish the epoch of Market era. But the epoch of Market era is actually not identical to the epoch of Diocletian era. Diocletian era commenced in 77 BCE. What the blunder committed by the modern historians, they consider the epoch of Diocletian era as well as the Market era as identical. This led to an error of more than 300 years. Actually, the Germans, few German historians, I think they actually indicated a phantom time hypothesis. They said that there is some error in 300 in the history of the Franks. So Charlemagne, his date is, there is a problem. So they said that he actually erroneously antedated himself, or actually brought forward 300 years to ensure that he was ruling in the exact year of 1000 from the date of Jesus' birth. Actually, it is incorrect. This 300 years problem is due to considering the Diocletian era, Market era identical. This led to this phantom time hypothesis. Once we identify these two as a different eras, if we establish the epoch of Diocletian era in 77 BCE and the epoch of Martyrs in 284 AD, then this phantom time hypothesis can be easily explained. Actually, there was no chronological error in dating of the history of France, in the German history. The real problem is actually even there are many papyrus records found in Egypt, Alexandrian church, and many in Syrian church. They refers to both eras, Diocletian era as well as the Market era, and the different dates. That clearly indicates that the epigraphic evidence and the literary evidence clearly suggests that the Diocletian era and the Market era were two different eras, not identical eras. And we need to establish the Olympiad era, because this can be established considering the Nabonassar era. We have fixed 1408 BCE. So the Olympiad era was how we can verify. And it is well known that the first Olympiad had coincided with a total or an annular solar eclipse, because using this, they have come out of a one kind of a formula to arrive or predicting the eclipses. And this actually Thales, he came out with the how to predict the solar eclipses considering the epoch of first Olympiad. So we have to establish the. So this is the actually the this annular solar eclipse took place somewhere in the 12th, 13th August 1435 BC, and based on that. But modern historians fix the date in 776 BCE as the epoch of Olympiad era, but they miserably failed to establish the solar eclipse, because no such solar eclipse took place in 776 or 775 BC. It means something is wrong in fixing of the epoch of Olympiad era. And this happened. Why? Because you have fixed the 776 or 775 BCE considering the first AD as the sheet anchor. You didn't go the independently verifiable evidences available in the Greek literature. So there was a between Jesus' birth and the Olympiad era, the total years, the gap was only 776 years. So the modern historians just calculated backwards, starting from first AD, and fixed the epoch of Olympiad era in 776 BC, ignoring the astronomical evidences. So if you reconcile what I have indicated, or actually I have proven the chronological error of 660 years in dating of Jesus' birth, the first year of Olympiad era, in which total annular solar eclipse took place, and they used this as a epoch, and came out of the formula to prediction of solar eclipses. A formula for predicting the solar eclipses has been evolved by the ancient Greek astronomers like Thales and others. Now, there is another problem in dating of the Roman era. This is also very interesting. Why? Because when Romulus, he was the founder of the city of the Rome. So from the year in which the Rome was founded, a total solar eclipse took place. There is a reference, and this took place in the Olympiad year, 6.4 Olympiad year, and 432nd year from the epoch of fall of Troy. These are the historical evidences. Okay. Then in the just beginning of the Roman era, means when Romulus founded the city, and just he in that the first year itself, a total solar eclipse in the beginning, and considering from that Roman era was introduced. And another evidence that Romulus died in his 37th regnal year, and then a solar eclipse of a sun was observed in this year. So this also we can easily establish considering these evidences. But modern historians, what they do, they just go backwards starting from the first AD, and they fix the epoch of Roman era somewhere 750, 751 AD. But they fail to establish these facts. And as I told you, the 432 years is the fall of Troy. The difference between the fall of Troy and the Roman era was 432. So the epoch of fall of Troy is 1842 BCE, and 407 years before the epoch of the first Olympiad. Then 704 years between fall of Troy and the expedition of Xerxes. He is the Achaemenid king. And the Homer, he refers to a Trojan War. Actually, the Odysseus, the hero of Trojan War, he returned to Penelope around after 10 years. So what actually the passage in the Homer's Odyssey, that actually indicates a total solar eclipse occurred when Odysseus, he returned to the Greece, because after Trojan War, he went somewhere lost in the Mediterranean Sea and some other islands. And later, after 10 years after the Trojan War, he returns back to Greece. So when he returned, a total solar eclipse occurred. So the modern historians, if you see, exactly after 10 years, 1842 BCE was the first, year on which the fall, the Trojan War ended. After that, after 10 years, a solar eclipse. What modern historians do, they fix the epoch of fall of Troy. Initially, they said that this is actually a mythical story. There was no Trojan War at all. But when archaeologists found the city of Troy, nowadays modern historians accept that yes, a Troy city Trojan War actually is a history. It is actually the way a modern historian reject the epoch of Mahabharata War as a mythical war. Similarly, they rejected the as a Greek the Trojan War recorded in the Greece history, but actually it was a historical event. And what modern historians did, they just fixed the epoch of fall of Troy in 1184 BCE, considering the first AD as the sheet anchor. But if 1184 was the epoch of fall of Troy, then after 10 years, there should be a total solar eclipse in the Greece. But that didn't occur in 1174 BCE. But what they just manipulated the data and fixed the year of Odysseus' return in 1177 BC. It is 3 to 4 years before his return. Within 7 years, he didn't return. He did it after 10 years as per the history. But the historians just manipulated or concocted that no, Odysseus returned in 1177 BC. This is absolutely, you are fudging the figures. You are not following the verification of real facts. Now, the exact date of Jesus' birth, what I have explained, considering the 660 years error in the Western chronology. What I did, I used the Nabonassar era 1408 BC, Roman era in 1410 BC, and Olympiad 1435 BC, and Seleucid era 975 BC. And Jesus' birth, the date is actually, Jesus was born in the 42nd year of Augustus. What you have to do, you have to calculate 42nd year starting from 702 701 BCE. That was the first year of Augustus, and 312 years from the Seleucid era, that is 660 BCE in both ways, and 13 days after winter solstice. Why? Because in 661 BCE, the winter solstice took place on 29th December. So Jesus was born 13 days after the winter solstice. He was not born on winter solstice day, the way the Christian historians claim, because they are celebrating 25th December as the Jesus' birth and Christmas. Actually, 25th December was the birth of a Mithra god, sun god. The so-called pagans in Rome, they used to celebrate Mithra's birth on 25th December. So the Christians, they hijacked the festival of Mithra's birthday, and they started propagating that Jesus was born. But Jesus was born actually 13 days after winter solstice. So that was actually on 10th January 660 BC. And the weekday was Wednesday, and it is clearly mentioned that he was born on 8th day after the calends of January. So it gives and the 8th January. Actually, in some other way, it is mentioned that on the 8th day before the Ides of January. So Ides actually full moon or middle of the January. So if you calculate from there also, we can easily from 8 to 10 January, this was the exact date of Jesus' birth. Now, the issue is Star of Bethlehem. Modern historians miserably fled Star of Bethlehem because it is actually an astronomical evidence to prove the date of Jesus' birth. This is the reason why the Kepler says Jesus was born in 7th BCE, not on 1st day. Because Kepler was an astronomer, he actually there is a compelling evidence of the astronomical evidence of the, because the Hebrew text, what it mentions that for Jewish astrologer, the Messiah would come from the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in the constellation of Sagittarius. On 25th November 6, exactly 2 months or 2.5 months before, there was a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in the constellation of Sagittarius. And as well as there is a difference in the Gospel of Matthew, that then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared, and he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the young child, and when you have found him, bring back word to me, that I may come and worship him also." So this is clearly the appearance of a star. Actually, it was not a star. When two planets conjunct each other, that becomes something big. It is unusually big. So that time, the Jewish king might have started, it's a star. It's not a conjunction of two planets. So this is how the star of Bethlehem has to be conjunction of two stars, has to be proven. No such conjunction took place in the first AD at all. So what I have established, the date of Jesus' birth is 10th. On the 10th, there was a conjunction of two planets exactly. If you can easily simulate on stellarium software, this was the conjunction of Jupiter and Venus on the 10th, and thereafter again they say that another conjunction that was actually with the Mercury and Jupiter, both conjunct on 21st January 660 BC. So we can perfectly establish the independently verifiable astronomical fact, the Star of Bethlehem can be established on 660 BCE. It is impossible to establish this observation of the Star of Bethlehem, a conjunction of planets on first AD. It is impossible because no such conjunction or any conjunction never happened in first AD at all. There is another controversy whether when Herod died. The modern historians say they have established that Herod died in 4th BC. But Jesus was born before the death of Herod. This is the reason was James Ussher fixed the Jesus birth in 4th BC, not on first AD. First AD is actually Newton's imagination. It's not the original James Ussher chronology. James Ussher fixed in the 4th BC because as per their scheme of chronology, Herod died in 4th BC. Now, the problem is how to reconcile. And there is one astronomical evidence because the Josephus, because Matthews clearly tells us that Jesus was born during the reign of Herod, who reigned over Judea. This is the Matthew's Gospel clearly says that Jesus was born during the reign of Herod. So before the death of Herod, you have to establish the date of Jesus. So modern historians miserably fail to fix the date of Jesus' birth, considering the reign of Herod. Why? And another astronomical fact, Josephus, he mentions Herod's death was preceded by a total lunar eclipse. So, as per the chronology established by me, Jesus was born in 10th January 660 BCE, and the total lunar eclipse occurred on 25th November 659 BCE. And I have reconciled the chronology of the Jewish kings also. So, based on that, clearly we can say that the Herod died in 659 BCE. Almost a year and 10 months or 11 months later, the Jesus birth. Then there is another controversy. The census, when the Quirinius, he was the actually Roman governor in Syria, he did one census in the census of Judea. Now, the problem is that Quirinius, the date of his governorship cannot be established in the first AD. He did only 6th AD as per the modern historians. Now, this also led to a controversy that how we can establish, because Jesus was born after the census of Quirinius, but modern historians could not. So now the Gospel of Luke, what it says, the Gospel of Luke states that Jesus was born when the Quirinius, a governor of Syria, conducted census of Judea during the reign of Augustus. This is clearly mentioned in the Bible. Now the Josephus says the taxation of Judea was carried out only after it joined the Roman Empire. So the Judea joined the Roman Empire. So when it joined, so now the Jesus was born during the reign of King Herod. So now the question is whether Quirinius became the governor of Syria during the reign of Herod or after his death. But all evidence indicates that the Quirinius became the governor of Syria during the reign of Herod itself. There are certain coins of Quirinius have been found, and the date has been given clearly, 36th year of Augustus. So, and one more thing you have to remember, the Jesus was born in the 42nd year of Augustus, and where the some points of Quirinius as the governor of Syria indicates that 36th year. Clearly, at least 6 years before the Jesus birth, the Quirinius was actually he was acting as the governor of Syria. So that's why we can easily say that at least 6 years before Quirinius did the census of Judea, but later also he did another exercise, that is the taxation of Judea. Both are not the same. So modern historians consider both are the same, and then they fix the date of the census conducted by Quirinius in the 6th AD. That is actually incorrect. 6 years later than Jesus' birth. Actually, 6 years prior to the Jesus' birth. Now, based on this entire chronological framework, what I did, I just presented the absolute chronology of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, because this is the foundation of the Western chronology. So Nabonassar has to be fixed in 1408, and he reigned up to 4 years. Then the entire the chronology up to the Kandanalu, he reigned up to 12, because during his reign, the Chaldean Empire rose again. So the Chaldean Nabopolassar, he established the Chaldean Empire in 1285 BCE, and he continued up to Nabonidus around 1199. In 1199 BCE, the Cyrus, he establishes his Achaemenid Empire. So we can easily reconcile the considering this, because the dates of all these Medo-Persian and the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the chronology has been given by Ptolemus in the epoch of Nabonassar era. So Nabonassar era commenced in 1408 BCE. Starting from the 1408 BCE, you can easily arrive the chronology. It is actually an absolute chronology we can arrive. Even we can reconcile the astronomical. I have explained in I am not going into such details. There are enough astronomical evidences are there, numerous astronomical references, even epigraphic astronomical. It means we can use archaeoastronomy to establish and verify the each date given by the Ptolemy. That is perfectly reconciles. The modern historians selectively take some astronomical evidence and selectively they reject it because they fail to establish entire astronomical evidence. Consider if you date Achaemenid Empire around 540 or 560 BC. That they fail to explain many astronomical data, as I have explained to you. The epoch of Olympiad era, the modern historians fail to establish the occurrence of total solar eclipse in the beginning of the Olympiad era, as well as in the beginning of the Roman era. The scheme of chronology presented by me perfectly establishes every astronomical evidence, either literary or epigraphy based. So every astronomical evidence, because the archaeoastronomy is the very strong evidence to establish absolute chronology. Using the scientific methods like carbon dating, you cannot arrive an absolute chronology. For arriving the absolute chronology, you have to rely on archaeoastronomy and the literary evidences. So based on that, we can easily establish. So Alexander, the Macedonian Alexander, can only be established somewhere 992 BCE. He defeated the Darius III and established his rule over the entire Persia. And rest history is well known, and we can arrive the chronology. Now the biblical chronology. How we can reconcile? So what I say, modern historians simply assume first AD as the sheet anchor. So what I propose I propose that the dating of Venus tablet is perfectly verifiable, and I gave the complete dating of because this tablet gives the heliacal rising and setting of Venus for 21 years, and the Ammisa Dukha, the fifth successor of Hammurabi, he reigned up to 21 years. So his entire period of reign has been mentioned in this Venus tablet, and it is absolutely verifiable because the pattern of heliacal rising and setting mentioned in this tablet can only repeat in a 10,000 years or more than that. So it becomes perfectly verifiable. So what I have used the dating of Venus tablet as the sheet anchor, not first AD as the sheet anchor. So the Venus tablet date can be perfectly established in 2473. It is actually, I'm saying, absolute chronology can be established. Arriving the absolute chronology of the first dynasty of Babylon is still eluding. The modern historians completely failed to establish the date of Hammurabi. There are 5 different dates. They say something long chronology, middle chronology, short chronology, ultra short chronology. I don't know what not. Till date, they give some 4 or 5 different dates for Hammurabi. It means modern chronology has miserably failed to arrive the chronology of the first dynasty of Babylon or the Hammurabi dynasty. If we date Venus tablet astronomically, this becomes the sheet anchor, and not only it becomes a sheet anchor for the Western chronology, but also we can arrive the absolute dating of the first dynasty of Babylon, that is Hammurabi dynasty. And according to the Bible, Hammurabi and Abraham were contemporaries. And we can perfectly establish the authenticity of the history given in Genesis or in the Old Testament that can be easily established. There is no, till date, the Christians are struggling to establish authenticity of the chronological history given in Bible. Why? Because they were following a wrong sheet anchor in first AD. If you put the Jesus birth in 660 BCE, the entire history, chronological history given in the Bible is absolutely correct and factual and can be easily established chronologically. If you follow the dating of Venus tablet, and we can astronomically explain every date given, actually 21 dates given in Venus tablet. So every 21 years, the heliacal rising and setting for 21 years given in Venus tablet can be astronomically verified and established. So this is the strongest archaeoastronomical evidence to establish the chronology, absolute chronology of the first dynasty of Babylon. That is still eluding. Last 300, 400 years, the Western historians have miserably failed to establish. That means they were following some wrong sheet anchors. I think there is hardly any, even I give another 3000 years, still the modern historians cannot establish the absolute chronology of the first dynasty of Babylon. Why? Because they are following the wrong sheet anchor. The result would be always the same. They went wrong, they keep on going wrong if they are following first AD of the sheet anchor. You have to review your sheet anchors to correct the chronology. That's why I'm saying the Venus tablet is independently verifiable. The tablet does not need any other evidence to establish the dating. You can verify the astronomical facts mentioned there because the pattern can only repeat more than 10,000 years once. That's why this becomes perfectly verifiable. And the exact date is 2473 BCE. In the year Ammisa Dukha was coronated, and he reigned up to 24453. Actually, it is 2455, 2453. Then the absolute date of now the Abraham was born in 2668 BCE, and so the biblical flood that took place around 3708 BC. So this is another evidence because Abu Rayhan, Persian historian, he mentioned that Chaldeans and Babylonian astronomers refer to a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. 229 years and 1108 days before the biblical deluge. So, what you have to do, every 20 years there would be a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. So, actually, they are referring a rarest conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. This rarest conjunction took place. Actually, what happened in 3937 BCE, 3937 BCE, Saturn and Jupiter conjuncted, and both went into retrograde motion. And again, after 4-5 months, they came together and conjuncted. It's actually conjuncted twice in the year. That's why it is a special, a rarest conjunction that never occurs in a thousands of years. So both went into retrograde motion. First conjuncted, went into retrograde motion, and again conjuncted. This is the reason why Babylonian and Chaldean astronomers consider it the rarest conjunction, and they used this at epoch, and they started counting the elapsed year. This is the reason why Chaldean Babylonian historians, the astronomers, say that the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter that took place 29 years before the epoch of the biblical deluge. And modern historians still they have no idea when the year. They roughly say 3000 BC, somewhere 2900 BC, but astronomically they can't explain the astronomical facts mentioned by Abu Rayhan related to the biblical deluge. There is another astronomical evidence for establishing the chronology of Egypt is the Sothic cycle calendar. This is still eluding, and till date, even up to the Achaemenid Empire, there are no absolute. Actually, the Egyptians or Egyptologists miserably failed to establish the absolute chronology of Egypt. They just roughly give some dates based on the Babylonian chronology is there. But Egypt followed a perfect calendar, that is Sothic calendar. They just followed 365 days without intercalation of any day after 4 years. And only at the end of 1460 years, they followed one more year. So this is how the calendar, a cycle of Sothic cycle followed 1461 years, having the civil days of 365. But when you reconcile it with the 365.25 days year, then it comes 1460 years. So the first cycle was 3605 BC to 2145 BCE, and the second cycle 2145 BCE to 685 BCE. And it is clearly mentioned in the by various historians that the second cycle ended during the reign of Augustus when he conquered the Egypt. So he conquered the Egypt 1 or 2 years before the 685 BCE. So everything we can easily reconcile if we follow. And there are numerous the dates mentioned in the inscriptions in Egypt. So these dates can be reconciled if you follow the Sothic calendar, and that commenced in 26th September 3605 BCE. And one more misinformation actually propagated by the modern historians. They say that the Sothis cycle commenced with the heliacal rising of the Sothis. Sothis is actually a star, a very brightest star in the sky. But actually, whatever the heliacal rising, that coincided with the flood, because the Nile flood, nobody will celebrate when you are in a misery. You will celebrate the beginning of the new year when you are when Nile flooded, the Egyptians struggled. So the floods receded only in the September. So actually, the receding of the floods was the epoch of the Sothic cycle, not the just beginning of the flood. So there is an error in arriving the absolute epoch of the Sothic cycle by modern historians. What I established based on the dating of Venus tablets and various other epochs, the Sothic calendar, because I reconcile, because Sothic calendar is closely linked with the Nabonasarita. Ptolemy gives the various almost 21 lunar eclipses. He refers to 21 lunar eclipses, and he gives the exact dates in the Sothic calendar. So I have reconciled all 21 solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, considering the Sothic cycle, the commencement of the Sothic cycle in 26 September 350. Actually, we have to reconstruct this Egyptian calendar to establish the all dates. So this is how the sheet anchors of Western chronology, as per my assessment. The biblical flood 3708 BCE, then first Sothic cycle, date of Abraham, then date of Hammurabi, exactly. Then Venus tablets, second cycle of Sothic calendar, the year of Exodus. Exodus is not the myth, it was actually historical event, 2138 BCE. Then the Hercules, he was the great Greek, actually founder of the Macedonian Empire, and he flourished a few years, 20, 30 years before the fall of Troy. And the Troy, this is how the entire, and Diocletian era and the Market Syrian, both are not identical. So what my two, what I want to correct in the modern the historians, that the Jesus was not born in first AD, he was born in 660 BCE. He has to be dated in 660 BCE. And second error is the modern historian consider Diocletian era, Market era identical. What I am saying, both are not identical, both are two different eras. Diocletian era commenced in 77 BCE, whereas the Market era commenced in 284 AD. So this is how we need to correct the sheet anchors to establish the correct chronology of the all Western civilizations. Thank you, Aditya.
Thank you so much, because it's a, most of the people do not know, even the Christian historians, they are, it's the biggest lie being spread all over the world. And we all know that it is a lie because of the various things. Actually, you are correcting them based on their calculation.
Yes.
But they only know whether they were that was a real person or not. They only know, because most of us do not know. And I will, based on my research and based on the American university research, that the Osiris was an Egyptian person, his story was taken as a Jesus story. Now we do not know whether Osiris was real or not. We do not know that. This is what the Berkeley talks about. Okay, so
actually the faithful historians made the all problems for us. They created this. Faithful historians created problems
or
for us.
People who were trying
Every
to create
tradition,
a faith.
because yes, all civilizations followed their own traditional chronology. India has their own traditional chronology. The problem is these European faithful Christians, they never examined first AD what they are following, whether that is correct or not. They just thrusted upon us that this is the only secular chronology. Actually, it is the most communal chronology. First AD has no evidence at all to establish the historicity. I am not questioning the historicity of Jesus, but I am questioning the epoch. That is not historical. So you have to re-examine your sheet anchors. First AD does not deserve to be sheet anchor of world chronology.
No, we can also question because if they question Krishna and Ram, then we can definitely question that.
Yes, that is because as a chronologist, I am only examining the dates given in the fact. They give one date for the Jesus birth, and then this is the date. A particular person was a historical or not, this is another subject.
Yes.
As a chronologist, I am just timelines I am setting, because Augustus is a historic person. So they say that somebody was born in the 42nd year of Augustus. So I am saying that is the date.
So thank you so much, Vedveer ji, and for all the viewers for watching. And do let us know your feedback. And I love the feedback on the last show you had. So namaste and thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Namaste.